did you know that there are no sketchbook police coming to get you? Those scary figures of authority that will creep up behind you whilst you are drawing to tell you, excuse me, your sketching is actually wrong. I'm going to have to take you away. Now, I do joke, but seriously, there is that fear of going wrong that hovers over our shoulder when we're sketching regularly. So in this video, I would like to reassure you that there is no way to sketch wrong and that there is no such thing as the sketchbook police. Hi, my name is Susan. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and I'm an artist, an author, and a sketchbook hoarder. I'm here in my studio space here in Surrey in the UK, a small converted garage space where I do lots of sketching and teach others how to do the same through my online courses, my YouTube channel, and my Inspire Sketching membership. Oh, and I also have a slight obsession with buying art materials and books, drinking coffee, and growing houseplants. So you might see that on my channel too. Now, first of all, when it comes to your sketchbook, I want to reiterate that there is no wrong. When you are sketching and creating, it's important to remember that you are in control. This is your sketchbook and you are in charge at all times. There is no way to sketch wrong because there are no official rules on sketching, there are no proper laws, and importantly, there are no sketchbook police enforcing any rules or laws whatsoever. So your sketchbooks are a place to experiment and a place to try things out. They're a place, yes, to make mistakes, to fail, to attempt to understand something. And when we push the boundaries, sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. It's not quite what you want to be doing. But unless we push these boundaries, unless we try pressing the buttons or experimenting with different marks and materials, we just will never know. This really is a place for you to experiment and to express yourself. And sometimes this is brilliant and it works, and other times you just can turn the page and start a new one. Now, when we're talking about the sketchbook police, I also think that this is a way of referring to those voices in your head that are perhaps being a little bit harsh, being a little bit judgmental. It's fine, we're all humans, we all have voices in our heads telling us things, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. But we are very much sometimes victims of our own criticism, and we are our own worst critics. And I want to remind you that if you wouldn't say it to somebody else, you really shouldn't be saying it to yourself. So if you find that you are sketching sometimes and you find those little voices in your head saying, oh, I did that wrong, what it's doing is closing down your creativity. It's stopping you from trying. It's stopping you from having that freedom that we need to experiment and play to be fully and truly creative. So replacing words such as can't, wrong, won't, try to replace them with more positive phrases. Phrases such as experiment, play, fun. And when I mention those words, a smile comes onto my face. It changes our whole attitude. The chemicals and hormones and the happy hormones that go on in our body, it just changes almost our chemical makeup when we start to use positive words, and then that gets associated with your sketchbook and your creativity, and we're on a really positive, happy, creative, experimental spiral rather than a slightly negative, unfortunately downhill spiral, which is not what we want. So be kind to yourself. So I'd like to come back now to the concept of making mistakes and going wrong. Now, both of those words are quite negative in the way that perhaps we use them on a regular basis, but I'd like you to embrace the concept of making mistakes. Now, if you think of scientists and when they conduct experiments, there might well be a control and then they'll try 3 or 4 different other things to come to a conclusion or test. And of, let's say, those 5 different experiments or tests, 4 of them may fail, 1 of them may work. So 4 of those are technically mistakes. But they're not, they're controlled experiments, they're tests. And I want us to open up our minds to be creative experimenters, artistic scientists. And again, that works with something like paint. You might have a paint and you've got 5 different paintbrushes, and you'll try all the different paintbrushes, and then you might realize that one is just the sweet spot. That makes exactly the mark you want for the sketch or the painting that you want to do. So allow yourself to experiment, to make those mistakes, because it's from those mistakes that we learn understanding, that we progress, that we push ourselves out of our comfort zone. If we're always doing the same thing again and again and again, there is no experimentation, there's almost no creativity. So it's really important to experiment and make mistakes. So we've talked about mistakes, let's now talk about rules. Now, when I talk about the sketchbook police and them enforcing the laws and the rules, there are, of course, some rules and techniques and strategies within art that help us to achieve a certain goal. For example, you'll have concepts such as tone or value, which help us to create light areas in a 2-dimensional plane, so on a sketching, on a drawing, and obviously that is a technique, that is an artistic rule. There are also rules to do with composition, how we can lay things out. You've got things like the golden ratio, you've got the rule of thirds, but I like to think of these as guidelines and artistic techniques that are here to help us achieve an end goal. But again, it's also really, really fun to play with those techniques and mess up the perspective, mess up the tone and value. So when I say there are no rules, there are a few loose rules and guidelines and techniques that have been developed over hundreds of years to help artists and creatives to achieve things on the page that they want to. But you know what? In a sketchbook, we can mess them up because those artistic art rules police are not coming to get us either. Now, I also just want to briefly touch on realism and comparison. And these are two things that can perhaps just sort of shut down our creativity. Now, let's first of all talk about realism. There appears to be a certain attitude, not with everybody, but perhaps from somebody who doesn't know sketching and art, that if it looks like the thing it's supposed to be, i.e. if it's realistic, that is better. And realism doesn't mean better in an artistic practice. So if you're doing a hyper-realistic drawing of, let's say, a rose or a flower or a petal, that doesn't mean it's better than somebody who has done something more abstract. It's a different art style. So often when we start sketching, if we're drawing and we're doing observational drawing, so we're drawing a something, we can get disappointed because our drawing doesn't look real. It doesn't look like the thing that we're looking at. And it's really important to understand that it doesn't have to. What makes sketching unique and what makes art art is the interpretation. Now, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think sometimes we can spend a lot of time scrolling through Instagram or looking on social media and comparing ourselves to other artists or sketchers or people in general. Don't compare, just ignore what everyone else is doing and do what you want to do. Just sketch what you want to sketch, share if you want to share it, and don't share if you don't. Sketchbooks are also private places. You can just shut the pages and keep it all to yourself as well. So I just want to recap here and remind you of 4 things. That first of all, there is no wrong. For example, if you're following a tutorial of mine and I tell you to do this, that, and the other, and you actually do something a little bit different, you haven't gone wrong. You've listened to your own creative voice and done something different because your sketchbook and your creativity has driven you that way. It's not wrong. I also want to remind you to not compare yourself to anyone else. You are unique, and that is what is wonderful about you. I'd also like you to check that inner voice. So when you're sketching, drawing, creating, use kind words in your mind to yourself. And finally, give yourself permission to make mistakes. So I hope you agree with me that those sketchbook police can go away. Now, a helpful way of interrupting these negative thoughts, which, by the way, is entirely normal because we are all humans, is to tell yourself, go away, sketchbook police. Interrupt those thoughts with a mantra or a positive comment that will give you that freedom in your sketchbook that we need to be creative, to explore, and importantly, to grow. Now, if you would like a really simple sketching exercise to say goodbye to those sketchbook police, why not have a little go at shadow drawing? And if you want to have a go at it, have a look at my video Sketchbook Stories episode 15, which explains exactly how to do this fun technique. Have a lot of fun, and I will see you in the next video without the sketchbook police. Happy sketching!